Hello, hello, lovely people. Welcome to my virtual couch. Happy Friday to you all. So, I am back with a new video now. I don't have all my equipment with me, so I am doing an audio version. Listen, just pretend that this is a podcast, okay? We're all used to it. I mean, at this point, nobody really watches YouTube just to watch it. Sometimes I just put my YouTube up and I just listen. So just pretend that you're listening to a podcast, okay? But I just finished watching the Wendy Williams documentary finally. And I'm not gonna lie to you all. I have not been wanting to watch it because it just I like Wendy Williams. She is a hot mess. She you know burned a lot of bridges, but she's still a pioneer, right? So I felt like I needed to do my due diligence and watch it, but I also felt like do I really want to see her in that state? So I've been procrastinating on watching it, and I finally watched it, and I thought, okay, let me share my thoughts because I have a lot to say. Okay. First, I think that this should be a cautionary tale for people about who you surround yourself with. And I say this to say, Wendy Williams is not a person that does not have family, right? When we've been seeing her, passed out with liquor on the floor at the Gucci store or whatever store she was at, surrounding herself with all these leeches, I was wondering, like, where's her family, right? So she has her family with her, but obviously, that was not a priority. Another cautionary tale that I think that people should take heed of is surrounding yourself with good, supportive, and healthy friends. And if you know Wendy Williams, you know that she was a person that admitted that she doesn't have friends because of her job, right? Like she couldn't make friends with celebrities because it's a conflict of interest. And she really did not, her whole life was dedicated to her work. So she didn't have time to cultivate friendships. I mean, we saw that she was friends with Nene Leakes for a little bit, and then they had fallen out. Now there's Black China. But if you really look at Wendy Williams, like her whole life was about Kevin or Kelvin, right? Who was her manager and her husband. And then when she had her son, her life was about her son. So she did not even make time to cultivate friendships, right? So in her time of need and despair, there's really no healthy friend to come and say, you know what, girl, let's get you together, right? Now I know they did show that one girl, that one woman, I'm sorry, on the documentary, but it really didn't say the extent of their relationship. Wendy really isolated herself and made her world about her son and her husband, and it has been her downfall. And I think that women really need to, well, people really need to take a hold of this. My friendships are extremely important to me. Yes, I have my family. Yes, I have, you know, sorry, I just got something got caught in my eye. Anyway, my friendships are extremely important to me. I definitely have my family, that's my staple, right? But my friendships are really important to me. So even if something happens where, I don't know, my family can't reach me, my friends are also my family, and I know that they've got my back. And I couldn't say so much so as for Wendy Williams. And I think there's something to say that ever since Wendy Williams was 6 years old, okay, she's always wanted to be famous. Not rich, but famous. She wanted to be known. And I think that says a lot. She wanted to be seen, she wanted to be validated. And again, even though her parents were together and she seemed to have a healthy, stable family, I think to myself, what is it about her life story and her narrative where she possibly didn't feel seen or heard and felt like the only way I'm going to be seen and heard is by being famous? Listen, I like the fact that she owns it. She's truthful about it. Like, I want to be known. I want to be back on TV. I want to be seen. I don't think it's about the fans. I think it's about her being seen and validated. Wendy Williams equates worth with popularity and being famous. And I think that is a lot to say to that. Now, I want to talk about the characters or the people in the documentary. First, I feel like let's talk about the whole guardianship in general. I'm very familiar with the process of guardianship because of my line of work, and it's a very flawed and very failed system. And I think that the state of New York failed her. They should have made Wanda, her older sister, guardianship. Now, Wanda said that she was willing to be a guardian. She just didn't know what it entails. And rightly so, a lot of families, when I used to talk to families about being guardianship, they don't know what it is, right? You have to take classes, you know, and like a certain amount of hours of classes. And as long as you have the family's best interest at heart. But there is an incentive, okay, for the state to appoint a guardian. Sometimes it could be a law office, sometimes it could be like a social worker. It gives money to the state. The state gets paid for it, right? So you've got family members that's willing to take over Wendy Williams' affairs at the heart. But honestly, if you really look into the guardianship system, it serves them to be her guardian. And that's where they failed her. Because how is it that if you are a guardian that there's no food in her fridge, there's no liquor, like who's checking up on her? And as a guardian, typically they should be making regular visits, right? Now, Wendy is not really mobile, right? So who is bringing this alcohol into the home? I want to talk about the people in the documentary. So first, there's Will Selby. I really go back and forth about my feelings about Will. One minute I like him and I think he has our best interest at heart, and one minute I don't because I think he's a bit delusional. Right? I think he has her best interest at heart because I do like the fact that he kept going around the her apartment looking for alcohol and getting rid of it. The real question is, where is she getting the alcohol from? Because I know Wendy isn't getting up and walking out the apartment and driving to go get alcohol. So she's got a lot of enablers around her who's afraid to say, no, I'm not taking you to get alcohol, even if that meant being fired. So I see that part. The second thing that I'm not really sure about Will is I feel like Will just wants to get to the money. I feel like Will wants her to get better so that they can get to the money. So if she gets better, then she can go back on TV. I feel like Will has sees himself as the next Kelvin Hunter, and it's not really working out. And I also don't appreciate how Will talks to her. He talks to her reckless, but Wendy is also reckless. She also, the way that she talks to her staff is also reckless. And I suspect that part of it is her personality and part of it is the alcohol induced dementia. Because I've seen it with my own eyes in my line of work. I usually say that Alzheimer's or dementia typically will enhance whatever personality that you have. So if you were kind of like a mean person, and if you get diagnosed and you have Alzheimer's or dementia, you become a meaner person, right? Because not all people that have Alzheimer's or dementia are mean, right? Or rude or aggressive. I always feel like it just enhances your personality. There's some people that have Alzheimer's and dementia and they're just quiet. They don't say much and there's like a blank stare. When you look at them, they look like they're looking through you, right? And when you see Wendy Williams, I think the alcohol induced dementia just exacerbated her personality. Because I don't think that, I was reading comments that, oh, it's the dementia is a dementia that's making her so aggressive and rude. No, she's always been like that. She's just gotten worse. So when it comes to Will, I'm not sure. I'm not really sure about him. But one thing that I do like about Will, though, is that he is on the side with the family. He's like, look, I can't do this by myself. I think Will got in over his head. I think Will thought that he could come in and polish Wendy up, set her up right, get her together, and put her back on the screen. And I think it's not until he really, really started working with her where he was like, wait a minute, I think I'm in over my head. I also do like that Will is like, hey, her son says absolutely no alcohol, like no alcohol, right? So I do like that. So I do go back and forth with Will. I do think there is a hidden agenda, but I do think he does care about her. I might be wrong. If I'm wrong, let me know. But that's the sense that I get. I think at the end of the day, the agenda is we're trying to get to the bag. And Wendy does not need to be on anybody's couch but a therapist's couch. She doesn't need to be on anybody's couch but a psychiatrist's couch, nobody else's couch but a doctor's couch. Okay, that's how I feel about that. Now let's talk about Sean. Sean Zanotti, or whatever her name is. I do not like no Sean. Do you all notice that after that California trip, when she called herself setting Wendy up in the meeting, that you never seen her again? I know Will let her have it. I know Will let her have it. And I hope he did. I know he cussed her clean out. And he needed to. So either she's in denial or she just doesn't give a damn, because the main thing she's trying to do is get to the bag too. Because how dare you pick up this lady, take her to California? She looks a hot mess. If you know Wendy Williams, you know that Wendy Williams is not going into no business meeting in some coochie cutter shorts, fur boots, and the Gucci shirt. I mean, it was just ridiculous. She looked bugged out. She looked thin. And I would have wanted to be a fly on the wall in that meeting. Can you imagine? Can you imagine that meeting? Those executives probably were like, this is a waste of time. Why did we even set this up? I would have loved to have known what happened in that meeting. But what pissed me off when I saw the scene where they went to the restaurant and she ordered a vodka martini, you could see that Sean is conflicted. She orders one drink and Sean's looking like, and then she orders another drink, right? And Sean is scared to tell Wendy, no more alcohol. Like, she can't handle this. I think Sean's also in over her head, but I think Sean is delusional. She's an enabler, and I hope that she has no dealings or contact with Wendy after that documentary came on. I went on her Instagram page just to see who she is and what she's about, and she has she has turned off her comments because they were tearing her up, and she needed to be torn up. Now, in episode 1, I felt bad for her because I did not like how Wendy was talking to her. So I felt bad for her. But in episode 2, I think episode 2 or 3, when she looked those producers straight in the face and said, Wendy is just Wendy, I don't think she has a problem. I said, oh God, this girl is delusional. And then if you're supposed to be her assistant, why doesn't she have any food in the fridge, or her public relations manager? Why are people going in and out of this lady's house and nobody's giving her any food, but somehow vodka is miraculously appearing in her home? Okay, that's an issue. Now, her niece, Alexis, I think is her name, right? I felt so bad for the niece. When the niece was crying, I wanted to cry because so here's what I think. I think that her niece doesn't really get. Oh, my mic just came off. Sorry, y'all. I think that her niece doesn't really get the magnitude and the seriousness of where Wendy is, because the niece's approach isn't working. The niece is talking to Wendy like old Wendy, meaning, auntie, like, you got to get it together. And that's how you would tell me. And, Wendy was getting pissed. Wendy was like, okay, I got it. Like, Wendy was getting agitated. And the niece has to understand. Now, I don't know, to be in fairness, I don't know if the niece knew before visiting her that she'd been diagnosed with alcohol-induced dementia. I'm not sure. But if she did know, I wish that she would have done some research, because going back and forth with her was not it. That is not how you approach a person with dementia, because you could tell that Wendy was over it and really didn't want the niece around. I'm also glad that the niece shut down this meeting that Sean was about to be a part of with Wendy. And she said, I don't know who she is. I'm trying to talk to my aunt, like, get away. So I do like that. But I do think that the niece needs to realize, like, okay, Wendy is not in the right state of mind. So rationalizing with her is not going to work. It has to be more action steps, right? But I didn't realize how tied the family hands was until the documentary, because I was like, why is her family just sitting around watching her do this? So clearly they took her to Florida and her son was taking care of her, but then they threatened the son to bring him back. And so that makes sense of why. And guardianships, they do that. Sometimes they will cut off communication between you and your family because, don't ask me why, but that does happen. I see that a lot. I used to have family members call me and say, I'm trying to get a hold of the guardianship because I can't get a hold of my family member. And, I'm not really sure why they do that. But like I said, the system is very flawed. And actually, there was a case that just, I got to look it up, but there was a case that just happened where a guardianship was actually put in prison because she, the law of the judge appointed a law office, guardianship, and they went and basically gave, it was a couple, older couple, gave them two options. You can either go to a psych ward or go to a nursing facility. Basically made them move to the nursing facility. If anybody knows the story, let me know or drop the link in the comments. Made them move to a nursing facility, sold their house, and basically sold all their profits and was charging them an arm and a leg for all these services. And now the guardianship, they're actually in jail. The whoever was in the law office. So I mean, I was happy to hear that. But if you really, really dig into it, a lot of times these lawyers or these law firms will give huge donations to these judges. And then coincidentally, these judges are appointing them guardianship. So it's in their, they, instead of appointing the family guardianship, they just somehow will find ways to say, oh, the family's unfit. And then, the law office takes over. It's really a terrible system, especially in the state of New York, Anyway, so the son, Kevin, bless his heart, he is a young man in school trying to live his life. I think, this whole Wells Fargo thing, it sounds like it was triggered by the son's purchase. Now, a lot of people are saying like, you're spending 125 whatever on Uber Eats. You have to understand that is Wendy Williams' only son, and she spoiled the hell out of him. So that was his lifestyle. He was probably getting Uber Eats for him, his friends, and racking up charges. He's doing nothing that his mom would not let him do. And if you know Wendy Williams, you know that she did not give a damn about spoiling her son. She's even said in the documentary, everything that I do is for him. So, I don't see anything wrong with what the son did. Wendy Williams probably would give him the American Express and say, here, son, have a ball, right? That's her only son. Like we all know that Wendy did not care about spoiling son, but we also know that Wendy Williams would overcompensate, by buying the son things because, she really wasn't there as a mother. She was busy working. And I think the son knows that, and I think the son is trying to set boundaries with her, which is kind of heartbreaking a bit. But I do like the son. I feel bad for him because he's literally just a, college student trying to live his kid, and he's been placed with a huge responsibility. Can you imagine your mom being a famous celebrity and now is a hot mess and cannot care for you, and then your father's broke with his side chick and their side baby? Like, can you imagine? Like, this boy is literally raising himself. So I do think that people need to cut Kelvin some slack, Let's see who else. I also thought it was interesting that, Wendy's daddy looks good, and I think it's interesting that Wendy's daddy looked better than his daughter. Like it's like the daughter is a hot mess and the daughter has memory loss, and the daddy is more coherent than the daughter, which is really sad. I like the scene when she went to Florida with her family. I thought that's where she belonged, to where she needs to be. And I like that towards the end, it sounded like Wendy was a bit coherent, and they were trying to get a plan together. But, if I could give a cautionary tale about Wendy Williams, I would say first, you know, um, surround yourself with people that genuinely care for you and support you and are healthy individuals. Surround yourself with people that are going to have your back, and have, if you have your spouse, right, have your friends and have your immediate family, right? And this is where you have conversations with your friends and family like, hey, if something happens to me, these are my wishes. There was nothing in plan for Wendy Williams, and everybody was just propping her up and making money off of her, right? And you could just tell she's bored. She's bored, she's lonely, you know. And another big thing that I would say is find hobbies and interests outside of your work. A lot of times people identify who they are with what they do. And there has to be more to life than that because your job could be ripped from you in any second. And you have to decide, okay, now who am I? Because who is Wendy Williams outside the Wendy Williams show? And that's the biggest thing that we saw. Like everything's been stripped away, right? And she basically has nothing. And who is Wendy Williams outside her, outside of Kelvin Hunter, right? Like this woman has dementia and is still saying, I'm Wendy Hunter, you know? So have a purpose outside of your line of work, have hobbies, have interests, and cultivate relationships because you never know when, those relationships are going to come in handy. And don't isolate and don't be a recluse, but really put in the effort. Now, we all get busy. There are times where, kids come into the play and work and just life be lifing, right? But it is important that we set an intention of doing things outside of those obligations. That's really important. And especially when it comes to children, our kids are gonna, if you have kids, they're gonna leave you one day. You know what I mean? And you also now have to look in the mirror and say, okay, who am I outside of my child? And that's something that I'm learning too. I'm learning too and making efforts on cultivating relationships and having a purpose and having an interest outside of my line of work. So it was a good documentary. It was also very sad. I did get teary eyed. I feel so bad for Wendy Williams. I don't like that people are saying this is your karma because you never know what can happen. I think people really need to give her a little bit of grace. She was doing her job. Now, listen, she was a savage. I'm not gonna lie, but she has opened doors for lots of people. She's opened doors for people to do this YouTube thing. So I really don't like when people say, okay, this is her karma you know so it was a good documentary. I really hope that there's a turnaround. Now, do I think that Wendy Williams is going to make a full recovery and be back on TV? No, I think those days are gone, but I'm hoping that that for the rest of her days she's comfortable and she has some sort of purpose. She has some sort of activity, and you know she finds joy in life because she equates her joy with the show. And I'm hoping that you know her family or professionals work with her so she finds joy outside the Wendy Williams show. But anyway, thanks for listening. Comment, like, and subscribe, and I will see you all next time. Bye.